Hey guys, good morning from a very cold the Netherlands, and today I just wanted to make a small video about patch preview, beta 0.8.1. So let's jump into the page where we got all the information over here. So overall, in the summary, it states there will be a substantial update to endgame content, itemization, elements of the user interface, and of course polish and optimization. So I'm just gonna go through this and have a little look at what we got and what you can expect for the upcoming patch. So starting with endgame, they say we're bringing fresh new content to the Monolith of Fate, as we'll post about this soon. By now they did do this, right? It is over here. So these are the updates to the Monolith of Fate in patch 0.8.1. And so what are we getting? Well, for example, they're making some changes. It will be possible to empower all of the timelines. Currently, you can empower 3 of the timelines. This will be possible now for all timelines. There are in total, I think, 7 timelines. So that gives you a little bit more to do. And the empowering timelines also have some additional effects, apparently. So enemies have 50% more health and damage. They got 50% increased item rarity and increased experience gain. So if you do have a character that can relatively easily farm the regular Monolith, you could give this a go and there would be some additional benefits. Particularly the experience gain, 50% increased is actually quite significant. And I just hope this type of leveling can somewhat compete with the arena leveling, because right now arena is by far the more superior content if you want to level your character fast. The Monolith just lacks from mob density issues. There's not many monsters to kill usually, and what you also typically see is that the modifiers to the Monolith, they don't actually add more monsters. That's not all the content they have for the Monolith of Fate. They're adding 3 new timelines, which looks pretty good. They have apparently also a fire-based or some sort of lava timeline once again. There will be new bosses in those timelines. There will be new damage in those timelines, because lately they added, of course, new weapon types like daggers and bows and that sort of thing. And they didn't update the blessings accordingly in the last patch. So I think they're fixing that right now. Of course, new unique items and 3 new boss music tracks. And then finally some polishing regarding the Monolith. They're taking the opportunity to polish the system now that they're at it anyway. They're introducing 9 new zone layouts for increased level design variety. Many zones available through the Monolith of Fate have had their visual improvements, and we're updating the level of existing timelines to accommodate the new ones. And I think if I look at the Monolith of Fate, there's not that much an issue with the way these timelines look or how they are designed. And for some context, I have got around 950 hours or so into Last Epoch currently, which means that I have been playing this endgame system quite a bit. So for me, it gets a little bit stale and a little bit boring, and the main reason is that the levels themselves, they are static, right? They don't really have any RNG elements to them. The only RNG elements are whether you need to kill a boss or kill 3 spires or find, I don't know, something else. But in the levels itself, they're always the same. And that is, I think, something they should try and fix. I think that is where the RNG should really come in, so that you feel fresh every time you load into the same zone. I really hope that is something they'll implement in the future, because it will benefit the game greatly if they got something like that. Because a lot of the time you will be spending your time in the Monolith of Fate, and then if these levels remain static in that sense, I don't think that it's going to be an experience that is going to be too enjoyable for most people in that sense. Another overhaul in the patch preview is the user interface. One of the big things we're getting, and this is going to make creating characters a lot easier, is going to be a tooltip DPS. There's another post basically indicating what that would look like, and then you see the new warpath tooltip, and it's pretty clear, I would say. You got a clear damage per second over here. We got the initial mana cost, which is 1. We got the cooldown, which is half a second before you can cast this again, and then a channel cost of 5 mana per second. And most importantly, it's pretty clear where the scaling comes from, right? Because we got the scaling tags. These are the tags that are related to the skill: physical, void, melee, channeled, movement, and strength. So if you want this warpath skill or warpath ability to do more damage, you should stack physical damage, for example, or you should stack void damage. depending a little bit, of course, on the skill tree and which node you took over there. All in all, I hope this new tooltip will make it a lot easier to see what is going on with your character, because currently you have no idea, right? There is basically no tooltip whatsoever. Only the mana cost and stuff is there, but not damage per second, which is good to have a look at the very least. I think the tooltip should help out quite a bit in this sense. Then we get a bunch of new items, and that is going to be rather interesting. They're introducing powerful new skill level raising items, and if you look at some of those, you can see them, for example, over here. It says +2 to meteor and 64% increased spell damage. Now this is pretty interesting if you look at the way that skills work in Last Epoch, because skills are not just scaling by themselves, they have their own skill trees, right? And you need to assign skill points, and that is how you skill damage to your skills. So +1 to void spells over here should basically mean that you get 1 skill point in the skill tree for every void spell that you have. This is a very powerful thing to have, because 1 point can really be like 16-20% increased and sometimes even more damage, right? And the rare affixes that you see over here, +2 meteor, that can be very, very significant. It means that in the end you can assign 22 skill points to meteor. And maybe this isn't only possible on, let's say, body armor or weapons or something like that. You could end up with maybe up to 25 skill points for a single skill, really increasing the potency of those skills. I'm curious to see how the balancing will go about this, because the skill cap currently was 20 points, and I think there was a good reason for that. You can imagine what happens maybe if you add another 5 points to the skill Lightning Blast. It's going to be completely out of control, but maybe that is not necessarily a bad thing, especially if these affixes are super rare. And of course the monsters and stuff like the Monolith, as we've just seen, this already is scaling up and your skills should scale along with it, right? I'm fairly excited for this actually. I'm hoping that these aren't super rare and that you have to grind your ass off to get these things. I'm hoping these are like somewhat common, especially maybe while leveling. This could really help out quite a bit, right? Because those extra skill points while you're going through the campaign can help out quite a lot. It can make your character feel a lot more powerful. And I think the leveling experience in that sense could really use a bit of a boost. And they're going to do a bit more regarding items. We're working on significant changes to defense. I think that is interesting, especially combined with we have reworked how affixes are distributed between prefixes and suffixes and which items they roll on. One of the main issues currently, in my opinion, with Last Epoch is what is currently referred to, for example, as the gear tax or the defense tax. There's always something like that in action RPGs. It should not be the case that you can just build anything you want. There should be some sort of check marks or milestones that you reach, and that is mostly done in the form of resistances. For example, Path of Exile requires you to have 75% elemental resistances, but those are only 3 elements, right? Cold, fire, and lightning. If you compare this to Last Epoch currently has I don't know how many of these defensive systems in place, right? We have 7 damage types, I think, and you can get resistance capped for all of them. So we got Void, we got Necrotic, Poison, physical damage, lightning, fire, and cold. And it's just too much. It's just too much, because if you want to get resistance capped for all of them, unless you really need to grind out gear and get all the set affixes and whatnot, it's really a pain in the ass to get resistance capped for all of these damage types. And you kind of need to be if you want to do endgame content with your average Joe build, right? I'm really curious what they're going to do over here. I think they should get most of that stuff just out of the way. It doesn't really add anything. It's just like inconvenience to the point where it doesn't make sense anymore. I'm in favor of a gear tax. I think I should be there, but I also feel it is too much currently. And you don't have enough affixes left to actually do something fun with your characters. Whenever I create a build, and I see that for most other people as well, around 80-90% of all the affixes on the gear goes towards defenses. And I don't think that is a healthy situation. I don't think that is something that you need to have. It should be like 50-50 and then some additional options in the passive tree, and that is about it. Because otherwise you just feel like you need to build a tank every time, even you're creating just like a mage or something. Another thing we get is class-specific relics. I think that's cool because they're already there, of course, but we're gonna get new ones, and I think those are in line with the previous 2 points, the new significant changes to defenses and the reworked affixes. So I'm curious to see how this goes. Going to skills, we get a new Spellblade skill. Surge is being added. You can see it over here. I'm not really gonna go into this. It's always super hard on paper to figure out like what this is supposed to be and if this is gonna be any good or not. I don't know. I'm not much of a theory crafter anyway. So I'm just gonna use this skill in game and see what it's like. We get a few more skills. A war cry for the Beastmaster. I think that's really cool. I think war cries are very cool to use in action RPGs, and I think it makes sense in the Beastmaster. I think it would make sense in the Sentinel as well, by the way. The fire shield from the mage is being removed. This was already in the making quite a few patches ago. They announced this and now it's finally happened. Flanking strike is removed from the Beastmaster. That's totally fine. Nobody used flanking strike, right? Because it didn't have a skill tree and it was pretty much pointless. Then animations. The Primalist gets new and improved animations, I think. Specifically, the Primalist was the class that didn't really have those yet, and now they will, so that is definitely exciting news. Specifically, I was excited about the Werebear because it looks absolutely ridiculous, right? But that is unfortunately not coming in this patch. It will be done in the future. There will be some improved level design. They stated we've performed a pass on many zones to improve their appearance. These updates were concentrated on Chapter 5 and Chapter 3, but now we've touched on other zones as well. This is good. You can definitely tell that whenever they do a bit of an overhaul or a rework like this, that it shows. And slowly but surely, Last Epoch is becoming prettier and prettier as time progresses, which is nice to see. And finally, optimization. They significantly optimized visual effects that appear around the character during skill usage. While these are not the most significant contributors to poor performance, this is the first update to include work from a long-term project of ours to dramatically improve combat performance in Last Epoch. We will be gradually rolling out this optimization work to additional areas of the game across future updates. This paragraph is not about what they're going to do in this patch at all, at least to me. I'm sure the visual effects will be improved quite a bit, but I'm also sure that performance still will not be good going by this paragraph over here. I think it's good that they mentioned this in this post. They have mentioned this in the past as well. Optimization is always part of their patches. There is usually an improvement. The game has come a long way from its initial inception to now, but still, if you play particularly endgame, during campaign it's not too bad, but particularly endgame like arenas and Monolith of Fate, performance is just not good. So that's why I'm happy to read that they apparently got a long-term project to dramatically improve combat performance, because combat performance is just currently bad. So maybe to conclude, am I excited about this? Like I said, I am fairly excited about this. I'm not super excited about this because a lot of the changes are just very logical continuation of the work they already started. The main thing I would like to see regarding Last Epoch, and the main thing that would have me come back to the game and play a lot more than just for the release of a patch, is actual new content, right? And I don't consider any of this actual new content. Yeah, sure, we get some new skills, we get new animations. You could say, well, it's new. I mean, yes, it's new. But if I have a Lightning Blast mage at level 80, let's say, that has cleared the Monolith, what am I going to do after this patch on that character? Nothing, right? There is nothing new in that sense. And I know that this is coming, right? This is not a critique on the game or anything. This is more like an answer to the question, am I excited for this upcoming patch? I am somewhat excited. I'm curious always to see what they've done with it. I'm curious to see how the plus level items will work out and how broken the builds will be. That is always fun, I think. But if you look at what are you supposed to do in Last Epoch, in my case, right, I do not enjoy the arena. I think it's extremely boring. So I'm only playing Monolith of Fate. And if you look at the Monolith of Fate, the empowered timelines, they're just not doing it for me. I mean, I don't want to play the same game over and over again, but then it just becomes a little bit harder. I want some actual variety in the end game. That is coming, but just not in the next patch, which is why I'm fairly excited about the whole thing, but not super excited. That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can expect this update by the end of this month. That is the end of February 2021. And I wish you all a very good day. See you around. Bye bye.